Have you ever seen a store stamp on a copy of Sports Illustrated? Would have only happened with vintage Sports Illustrateds, and we're going to find out something very interesting in today's unboxing video because I had several. By the way, I'm Jim, CGC Sports Illustrated, unboxing video, 5 slabs in here, all vintage. A couple of these had a store label on them. And I'm going to find out how CGC manages that because the label is something I ended up trying to remove. Didn't come off cleanly. We're going to talk about it. I'm very, very interested to see what CGC does with these specific issues. So while I'm opening this up, years ago, 50s, 60s, maybe a little, probably not really in the 70s, mostly 50s and 60s. Back then, stores would put their stamp on magazines. Sometimes it was a label and sometimes it was a stamp. I've got several vintage issues that were sold at military bases, and if you're familiar at all with military bases, especially back then, their shops and commissaries were generally called the PX. And so I've got a couple of very vintage issues from the 50s that are stamped with the Fort Benning PX. It's a stamp that's on the magazine. But other stores would also put like a little label on it along the top. I'm not sure why stores did that. It might have been like an anti-theft measure or something. Not really sure why, but they did. And I got several vintage issues that had a label on the top of the magazine. And I removed that label. Didn't come off cleanly, but it was very much like a subscription label, but it wasn't a subscription label. It had the store's name there or something like that, but it was in the totally wrong spot. So for if you're looking for mailing labels or mailing labels that have been removed on Sports Illustrated, they're generally in the lower left. Sometimes they're vertically on the left side of the spine. They are never in the top right, and that's where all of these were. So it's going to be very interesting to see what CGC does with those, and we're going to have a lot of fun with it. 5 slabs in this box, all vintage. Man, these vintage Sports Illustrateds are so hard to find. Going to tell some stories, show some highlights, and look at some grades. You know the rules. I know what these issues are. I don't know what the grades are, so you're going to get my live reaction right here. You know what this one is already. Come on. We all know what this one is. Just by the back. Fingers crossed. Not good. 7.5. First copy of Sports Illustrated. This came out on October 16th, 1954. Let's go through the pop reports. They're huge. There are 95 9.8s. There are 156 9.6s. There are 119 9.4s. This 7.5 is no good. And I have no idea why it's a 7.5 because it looks dramatically... Oh, there it is. Yeah, there's like a corner crunch on the back that was... The paper was permanently damaged, and I couldn't get it out with pressing, and they crushed me on that. Iconic issue. By the way, I've talked about this before. They still won't mention the fact that this is Eddie Matthews' first Sports Illustrated cover. Every single time I send this one in, I make that request for CGC to put that on the slab label. They still refuse. And I probably had this issue graded 20 or 30 times, at least. But great issue, iconic, historic. There are a ton of reprints out there. I did a video about this recently. Go back and watch that on how to spot the fakes and the reprints. Some of them say reprint on the bottom. There are a lot that don't. So, buyer beware when you're buying this issue raw. And go back and watch my video because I give you some good tips and tricks on how to spot the reprints and the fakes on that first copy of Sports Illustrated from 1954. And we are off and running. Man, I love these vintage ads. Seagram's VO. Oh, that's a great vintage ad on the back. 3 first covers in this box. 2 I've never owned before. All 3 massive Hall of Famers. Could be a big box. Ooh, 8.5. Okay, so interesting story behind this one. So this is Virginia Tech football. This came out on September 21st, 1959. There are now 3 8.5s. I had my fingers crossed that I could get this to the top pop, and if it had been a 9.0, it would have been that. but there are three 8.5s, an 8.0, a 6.5. I projected it at 9.0. I got this graded for a fellow collector. So this happens a lot, and I'm starting to do it more because I've got a couple of thousand newsstand Sports Illustrateds that just haven't risen to the level of priority for me to get them graded yet. But I had somebody reach out to me on social media, and they're like, hey, I'm a big Virginia Tech fan. Do you have any of those? And I don't sell my raw newsstands. And I told him that, and he said, well, if you ever get them graded, let me know because I'm interested. So in an unboxing video a while back, I had a couple of modern Virginia Tech issues graded, Chris Davis and Michael Vick, and now this one from 1959 featuring Virginia Tech football right there. So if there's a team you like or an athlete you like and you just want a couple of their issues and that sort of stuff, or you're having trouble finding them, like Virginia Tech, not all that collectible unless you went to school there, unless you're a big fan of the team, just shoot me a message because I probably got, almost everything. And if you're interested in it, I can get it graded and we can work something out on a deal on the back end. So Virginia Tech football from 1959, pop 3, none higher at that 8.5. All right. I told you I had 3 first covers, and I wasn't counting the Eddie Matthews first cover because they don't label it that way. So let's see what happens here. 3 first covers. That's what's left in this box. All huge stars. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. Pistol Pete Maravich, first Sports Illustrated cover. It came out on March 4th, 1968. You can see that grade right there. Now, 6.0, you may be thinking, 6.0, all right, fine, whatever. The highest graded copy in the world is 8.5. There's one of them. There's one 8.0. There's one 7.5. So few of these have been graded because it's such a rare, difficult to find issue in newsstand that a 6.0 is pretty darn good. I projected it at a 5.0, so I'm actually thrilled about this. But here's that label. And man, I'm pretty good at label removal. That one just did not want to come off, and I used probably a dozen different techniques to try and get it to come off. But that's a store label right there. So it's not a subscription label. And when I sent this in, I was really worried that CGC was going to be like, oh, that's a subscription label. Not knowing that they're never printed up there. They're either along the spine or along the bottom. And I said, hey, look, this is a store label. This isn't a subscription label. It's a newsstand issue. Please classify it that way. And they did. So that's kudos to CGC. Good on you guys. Appreciate you taking, my notes into account there. I'm a huge Pistol Pete Maravich fan. I've loved the fact that his name has been back in the news lately with Caitlin Clark breaking his all-time scoring record. So anything that gets people talking about the history of Pistol Pete and what an amazing, awesome player he was. He really languished in the NBA, played up for a bunch of terrible teams. But was lights out and was just the ball handling skills, the passing, the scoring. He was amazing. And of course, there's lots of controversy with Caitlin Clark breaking his record because, she did it in 4 years. Pistol Pete, the game was different back then. I mean, yeah, it's a record. You can do it, but it's really comparing apples to oranges. Nothing against Caitlin Clark. I love her. Love watching her play. But when Pete Maravich played, freshman could not play, so he set that record in 3 years. There was also no shot clock and no 3-point shot. But I love this one, Pistol Pete, first cover in his LSU uniform. And again, that's from March 4th, 1968. Impossible to find this one. Impossible to find it in newsstand, and I love seeing it. All right. Okay, so CGC recognized that as a store label, didn't label it subscription, outdid my projection, which was 5.0, and it made it to 6.0, so we are humming right along. Now we just need to keep those good vibes and those me under projection, CGC over delivering on my projection. If we can keep that going, we're in beautiful shape. Look at that car on the back. What is that? 68 Thunderbird. How cool is that? Okay, 6.5. Not bad. All right, not bad. Johnny Bench's first cover. This came out on March. I've never owned this one before, so I was thrilled when I could find this in a newsstand. And yeah, it's obviously got lots of problems that we'll talk about, but I'll take a 6.5. Came out on March 11th, 1968. Here are the pop reports. There's one 9.0. There's one 8.5. and there's one 6.5 in that order. So extraordinarily rare to find this copy here. That's Bench right there in the middle in his Cincinnati Reds uniform. I projected this at a 5.0. Again, we can take a look here. Had that store label on there. Did a much better job getting this one removed, but it had that store label on there. I really wasn't quite sure how much CGC was going to ding me for that because it didn't come off cleanly. Not the best first cover. He's sharing it with 4 other players that really never amounted to much. Obviously, Johnny Bench is the star there. 14-time All-Star, 2-time World Series winner, 2-time MVP, Rookie of the Year, first ballot Hall of Famer in 1989. Impossible to find this in newsstand in any grade. This is the 3rd highest graded copy in the world, and it's a 6.5 with arguably the greatest catcher of all time in Johnny Bench, and a 6.5. All right, good box. This is a fun box. A lot of oddities, a lot of little weird stories going on here, and I am overperforming on my projection. All right, last one. This is a big one. I'm gonna need to gather my thoughts. Take a deep breath, calm down, because this is a big one. Never owned this one before. Oh, that is beautiful. That is beautiful. Look at this. Pete Rose, first Sports Illustrated cover. Came out on May 27th, 1968. Now, there's some really strong grades in this one, despite the fact that this is 60 years old. There's a 9.4, there's a 9.2, there's a 9.0. I projected this at 6.0, came in above my projection at 6.5. Can we just for a minute talk about how beautiful this cover is? You've got this great action shot here. Obviously, it looks like a pop-up. The catcher and Pete are both looking for the ball. But then you've kind of got almost this, stop motion animation sort of thing with these freeze frames of him doing all these moves. And the headline is the Reds' Brash Pete Rose. How do they not have the label corrected? That's bizarre. It doesn't say first Pete Rose cover. I requested that. Didn't get it. Interesting also here. Complimentary copy label removed. That's not what this was. That wasn't a complimentary copy label. Again, you'll see that sometimes with vintage newsstand issues where they put that. That was a store label. It was the label for the store for which it was sold from. Now I have to go back and look at the others. Complimentary copy label removed. Complimentary copy label removed. Okay. You're wrong on that note, CGC. I told you exactly what it was when I sent it in, and you can actually see part of the store's name in the Pistol Pete one that didn't get fully removed. So a little frustrated on that. But overall, great box. Let's check out some Pete Rose, some Charlie Hustle highlights. They called him Charlie Hustle. What, just a gritty blue collar player, and I get it, but it's a shame that Pete Rose's legacy will always be about gambling and his suspension. But I always like to, despite that, focus on the player and the athlete and what they were able to do on the field, because he was amazing. Great unboxing video. Comment, like, and subscribe here on YouTube. Follow me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, eBay, the Facebook group. It's all the same username everywhere, CGC Sports Illustrated. And we'll do another unboxing video again soon. Thanks for watching.